because I wanted to remind you and remind myself, I guess, that life can sometimes get us down, and that we can get so busy in doing life that sometimes that we forget that we are loved, that we are important, and God hears our prayers. And I just wanted to remind you that we are needed in this world, that we are enough, that you are amazing, you are worthy, you are valued. And God and I see you. Yeah, I think so. Thank you, Delane. So the title of my sermon today is the role and the importance of a chaplain in the community. Oh yes, sorry. I'm just reading my notes. I've done it around the wrong way. So with that role, I'm going to share from a chaplaincy or chaplain's view on the subjects today. I just want to just to let you know that things may be raised, emotions may be come up, feelings of undealt issues may rise, and you may be dealing with stuff in your life at the moment, and you may feel a bit uncomfortable. I just want you to know, just encourage you, if something like that happens, if something is raised, then you can either speak to myself or find somebody else to speak with about that. And just on that note, that Chaplaincy Australia have a 1-800 chaplain number, so anybody can call that up and speak to a chaplain. It's confidential, and and tell your friends if they don't go to church and you think that talking to someone might help them in any situation. 1-800 chaplain is good for that. So what's a chaplain? A chaplain is someone who provides emotional and spiritual support for everyone, respecting religious traditions and spiritual practices, offering comfort in times of spiritual distress and anxiety. They represent Jesus to those who may never enter a church. Chaplains serve in places where people feel isolated, lonely, or are crushed by circumstances. They walk alongside people in their darkest hours, and during this time they can show God's love in action. I hear you asking, isn't a minister and a chaplain the same thing? Good question. Thank you for asking. Just to let you know. So I'm just going to explain you might already know, but I'm just going to share with you the differences between a minister or a pastor and a chaplain. So the roles are very similar to each other. Both have experienced a special call to the ministry and to the service. Both have a desire to equip people to grow in spiritual maturity. So what's the difference? It basically comes down to the setting in which the ministry is provided. So the local church or the pastor usually ministers to a group of people who have like or similar religious beliefs and who share many common cultural identities, for example, language and geographic location. Whereas the chaplain usually ministers to a group of people of many different beliefs, of many different religious beliefs, or even to those who don't even have a religious belief at all. The local pastor or the minister, let's say us, have been given the authority or been equipped to minister in their local church by the ACC, is who we come underneath, whereas the chaplain is given the authority by the people or the company they work through. Also, the minister or the pastor usually ministers to the congregation, whereas the chaplain usually ministers in the marketplace, not usually considered religious. For example, schools, military, hospital, working alongside police and ambulance officers, in aged care, sports, jails, a DCRN chaplain is a disaster relief chaplain, which I've just currently I've done, and so and that's a chaplain who is deployed by the Australian government to go into disaster zones, and everywhere else you can think of there is a chaplain. I forgot to bring it with me, but there's so many sectors that there's a chaplain. And so I just want to talk about or share with you my calling for chaplaincy. When I went to the AOG, National Women's Conference in Adelaide one year with Marilyn Hickey was a guest speaker, and Pastor Mari Cartledge spoke about, at the time, Southern Cross Bible College, which is now Alpha Crucis. And she spoke about the college and and as she spoke about the college, I felt nothing about the college at the time. But by the end of that conference, I felt that I wanted to serve God with all of me, not knowing what this actually meant. But I knew that I just had a calling and I wanted to serve God. And to do that properly was to go to Bible college and to get equipped. And so I did. And then several years later, I got ordained as a minister, which I'm still very honoured to be serving in that area. So my calling for a chaplain, I guess, came from looking back at myself when I was in my teenage years, and how I was as a teenager. Who's heard of the saying that it takes a village? Takes a village to raise your kids. Well, I love my parents both dearly, and Mum now, she would agree with me on this, I'm sure, but it took about 3 villages to raise me. I'm just saying. In saying that, over the years, and as I've watched my kids grow up and their friends, etc., and what issues they face in today's world, and having some experience from my own life, I wanted to become that person that I needed back then when I was a teenager. Someone I could talk to about anything and everything. I don't know why I'm getting teary again, but anyway. To the kids of today. And the only way I could do that was become a chaplain so I could get into the schools. Schools these days don't recognise, even if you're an ordained minister, you can't go into the schools. You need to be a chaplain. So I want us to go back to that scripture, Luke chapter 10, verses 25 to 33. And I want you to think about the verses for a moment and think about how this man who was wounded and left for half dead may have been feeling at this time. But before we go back to him, let's talk about the other people in the picture. So the lawyer was feeling righteous by wanting to justify himself. He suggests that there must be whom the obligation to love does not apply, thus seeking to set a limit on his duty to love, rather than the attitude of the one who is doing the loving. The thieves, well, there's a whole lot of issues going on right there. Struggling for survival, I guess, and much more. The priest and the Levite, both of them, passed this man who was wounded and left half dead, passed him by on the other side. Now I understand that back in this time there was distinct racial strain between the Jews and the Samaritans. They didn't frequently interact with each other. In some cases they were outright hostile and hated each other, which I guess some people would find that hard to deal with and wouldn't associate and just move away from each other. What about the man who was wounded and left for half dead? Now I'm stating the obvious here, but he was naked and he, I guess, would have felt embarrassed. He was hurt, feeling rejected by the people that were around him, not worthy, not important, not cared for, maybe feeling like a burden because he couldn't help himself, etc. I know that sometimes I felt like this, and I'm wondering if you have ever felt like this as well. Time to check in. Got a little reminder here. How's everyone going? I want you to turn to the person next to you and just ask them if they're going okay. Josh, you can look up the back. And just a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If a thumbs up if you're doing all right, thumbs down if you're not. And if, oh yeah, everyone's good. All right. I was going to say, if you get a thumbs down, check in with that person at the end of the service. Now, I want to bring this situation into today's time. I'm wondering how you would react. What's in your heart today? For example, the homeless here on the property or down the street, wherever. Do you act like the lawyer, setting a set limit on your duty of love? Or do you act like the priest or the Levite and ignore him or ignore them and pass them by on the other side because of their choices and because of what they look like and who they are? Or do you act like the Good Samaritan who saw him, who has compassion and looks out for people. I understand that people may find this very hard to reach out to someone who is homeless, or who is poor, or wears dirty clothes, or lives in a rough area and has a different mindset to us or to you, and who may act differently to you, or if someone has been in jail, because not everyone has been raised the same way as us or as you. Everyone is different and thinks differently. Everyone has different struggles in their life, and when they're dealing with different struggles in their life, they act differently towards other people. They act out of character, as when you're okay, the world's rosy and you got no problems. When the world's rosy, it's good. You look at things differently than what you would if you're dealing with something. Well, that's me anyway. I do that. I want to introduce to you the 4 pillars of chaplaincy care, which may help you be more comfortable in reaching out to everyone and anyone. The first one is respect. Psalm 139, verses 13 to 16 says, "For you formed my inward parts, you covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made." Despite our insecurity, God tells us that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. God made you. He made us wonderful. You were knitted by God, the same God who created the world. Verse 14, "Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in secret and skillfully wrought in the lowest part of the earth." Wrought means here embroidered with various colours. And the earth, the word earth is a metaphor for the womb, which is secret or hidden from view, dark and mysterious. So this scripture teaches us that God himself knows everything about our lives in advance with his perfect presence, omniscience. God had a direct hand in David's creation, putting every part of him in his mother's womb. Thus David knows that his existence is very valuable. Nothing about him is unknown to God, not what he has done, is doing, or will do. This is the way God sees us. He loves us this much. So if we take this attitude on board and see everyone and look at everyone the way that God looks at us, this point might help you to start to reach out to those who The next point is genuineness. This is what Google says. If you describe a person as genuine, you approve of them because they are honest, truthful, and sincere in the way they live and in their relationships with other people. And this is what the Bible teaches us. Biblical authenticity requires courage, but not reckless. It requires a balance of truth, courage, but not... It requires a balance of truth and grace and truth about ourselves. grace and truth about others, but most importantly, grace and truth about God. 1 Peter chapter 1 verses 7 says that genuineness of your faith, being much more precious than gold that perishes, though it is tested by fire, may it be found to praise, honour and glory at the relation of Jesus Christ. So when trials come our way, which they do, and some more than others, we need to make a choice to continue to trust God as we are going through the trials. As God continues to provide, our faith grows stronger. Here in this scripture, Peter compares and contrasts our faith with the classic standard for value, gold. Like gold, our faith is refined and purified by the heat of our trials. Be genuine with people. Always be your genuine self, because people will see right through you if you're not. And they will usually pick up on it, and if they don't like it, they will walk away. But that's on them, not you. Faith is the next pillar of chaplaincy care. Hebrews chapter 11 verses 6. Now, I just want to pause there for a minute. I have prepared a 20-minute sermon, but my nerves, it might be like a 10-minute sermon. So I'm just saying I'm sorry if I just rush through. Thank you. So Hebrews 11, chapter 11, verses 6 says, "But without faith it is impossible to please him. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. Nothing so pleases God as a steadfast faith in all that he is and promises to do. If we seek God diligently always, we believe that he will reward us for it, and reward is our salvation. The scripture reminds us to seek God, the God who rules and reigns over all, and the one who rewards those who seek him. So let us long to seek God and find our reward in him." On this note, this is probably a good time to check in with yourself and be truthful with yourself and ask yourself, how's my faith going? Do I really trust and put all my faith in God? If not, that's okay, but ask yourself, is there anything I can do to change that or achieve this? Where are you with your faith at the moment? Are you totally dependent on God and have no worries? Or are you half and half? You might have are you half and half? Where am I? Are you half and half? You might trust God in some areas of your life, but not in others, because you find this hard to do, or you just don't trust God because you find this very hard to do. If you find it hard to trust God, but you would like to trust God, that makes sense. Yes, thank you. Or even explore this area, I'm preaching to those who aren't Christians as well, but everyone's a Christian in this room. So that's why the questions. So if you don't feel comfortable enough, please talk to someone. And then I just added in here, looking around the room, I know that there are plenty of us who have had a faith in God for a long time, and I'm sure who have been tried and tested by their share of trials. If you don't trust God, there's nothing to feel embarrassed about. As I said earlier, we've all had a different upbringing, so this will have an influence on the way we see God, the way that we come to God. We will have a different understanding about God. We may not be sure what it all means, but if you're interested, find a friend who has a faith and have a chat over a cuppa sometime if you want. The next point is personal growth and development. One of the most important parts of life, and it doesn't matter what your profession is, or even if you're school age, Josh and Talia, we need to physically care for our bodies. If we want to last the distance in our physical and spiritual world, we need endurance. Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 to 2 says, "Therefore we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and every sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with the endurance the race that is set before us." The Bible teaches us in this verse that we are to lay aside everything that hinders our progress, particularly every sin. We can do this by asking the Holy Spirit if there is anything in our lives that is hindering us becoming the best person that God has created us to be. Because I don't know about you, but one day I want to hear those wonderful words of, "Well done, good and faithful servant." And who knows that if you put garbage in your body, garbage will come out. And there's another saying I've heard of, and is hurt people hurt people. Let's not lead or be an example like this. We as Christians are called to be set apart from this world. Self-care comes into this part as well. I'm not very good at this self-care stuff, but I will continue to work on this in my life. As we all know, life can get busy, and when life gets busy, we sometimes forget to just stop and smell the roses. One of my ways to self-care is I love to take my dogs for a walk up at Botanic Gardens, and I love sitting down near the water there and just sitting until my dogs get impatient and want to go again. Or if I don't do that, I love jumping in the car and going somewhere and just watching the sunset. Or if I'm near the coast, you know how much I love the coast. I love getting up early and going to the beach and watching the sunrise, or going for a walk along the beach, or just sitting on the beach and just listening to the sound of the waves. I find this healing, and it's just a good time to just sit, gather your thoughts and pray and to spend time with the Lord. So you might have something that you like to do, but don't get enough time to do. So maybe this is a good time to check in with yourself to see how you're going. And maybe you might need to focus on your self-care. Through the network of Chaplaincy Australia, they provide supervision and mentors. And we as chaplains are encouraged to seek supervision, especially after a traumatic event. Another part of personal growth and development is social. Catching up with and hanging out with your friends or family, and positive ones, not hanging out with the negative people. Proverbs chapter 27 verses 17 says, "As iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of a friend." True friendship is a two-way. True friendship is a two-way relationship where both people benefit from mutual growth and accountability. Just as iron sharpens iron, friends have the power to challenge, encourage, and sharpen each other's character, fostering personal and spiritual development. Whilst hanging out with your friend or family, this is a good time to check in with them to see how they are really going. Ask them the question, how are you really going? But don't just ask the question. Be present. Be actively listening to what they are saying to you. Because these two tools are very powerful tools. When somebody notices that you're actually listening to what they say and not just talking for the sake of being polite or whatever, there's a ministry in that. Now that I have, and that's the four of the pillars of chaplaincy that we use. And now that I've introduced you to the four pillars of chaplaincy care, hopefully you can have the confidence to approach or even ask someone if they are okay. In the words of Christine Kane, this is not a time to be distracted. We have one God and are on a mission to fulfill the purpose of God in our generation. So in conclusion, I have explained the difference between a minister and a chaplain. I've shared my story of why I wanted to become a chaplain. I have introduced you to the four pillars of chaplaincy care and how these points may help you when you are reaching out to somebody new. Chaplains understand that the ministry of presence is sometimes the most important ministry intervention chaplains provide. From the mandate to feed, clothe and shelter, chaplains understand that the practical acts of service are an essential part of demonstrating faith. And from the examples of Jesus and Paul, chaplains recognise the importance of respecting differences in culture and religion, always providing opportunities for people to choose their own ways, own paths. In saying all this, though, you don't need to be a chaplain or you don't need to be a minister to reach out to someone who's struggling. Just reach out. Take a step of faith if this is not your normal thing that you do, and see where it leads you. So I just want to read a benediction. Numbers 6:24 to 26. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. Have a good week. And tea and coffee. Thank you. I did it.